What I'm about to explain today may completely change the way you think about healthy mornings after 60, because some of the routines millions of adults proudly repeat every single day are quietly exhausting the body instead of helping it recover. And honestly, this has become one of the strangest problems in modern wellness culture. People wake up trying to be healthier. They drink the perfect detox drink, push themselves through exhausting workouts, skip breakfast because they heard fasting is anti-aging, flood themselves with caffeine before their nervous system has even stabilized, rush into stress before the brain and body are fully awake. And the dangerous part is this: many of these habits feel productive in the moment. They feel disciplined. They feel healthy. But biologically, some of them may be accelerating inflammation, worsening cortisol imbalance, disrupting blood sugar regulation, impairing muscle preservation, damaging sleep quality, and increasing physiological stress on aging bodies that already recover more slowly than they used to. And after 60, that matters far more than most people realize, because aging is not only about genetics, it's also about recovery. Your nervous system, your hormones, your inflammation levels, your metabolic stability, the body's ability to repair itself. And some morning habits quietly push those systems in the wrong direction every single day without people even noticing. My name is Dr. Adam Scott Levin, and for more than 15 years, I've worked with adults dealing with cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, accelerated aging, inflammation-related illness, fatigue disorders, and stress-driven health changes that often build silently over time. And today, I want to walk you through several extremely common morning habits that many adults over 60 believe are helping them, but may actually be making the aging process worse. Not to create fear, not to shame anybody, but to help people understand how the body really functions after 60, because once you understand that, your health decisions begin to change in very powerful ways. Before we go further, I want to ask you something honestly. What is the very first thing you do after waking up in the morning? Coffee, checking your phone, exercising, skipping breakfast, taking supplements? Let me know in the comments along with your age, because some of the healthiest discussions on this channel happen when people realize how many others are dealing with the exact same struggles they thought were unique to them. Now, let's begin with one of the biggest mistakes I see constantly in adults over 60. Starting the morning in a stressed state before the body is even fully awake. And most people don't realize they're doing it. The moment the eyes open, they reach for the phone. News alerts, emails, financial stress, social media, political arguments, family problems, notifications. The nervous system gets flooded almost instantly. What many adults don't understand is that cortisol naturally rises in the morning already. That's normal biology. It helps wake the brain and increase alertness. But when you combine that natural cortisol rise with immediate emotional stimulation, the body can enter a hyper-stressed state within minutes of waking. Heart rate rises, blood pressure increases, stress signaling intensifies. And over time, chronic nervous system activation contributes to inflammation, poor sleep recovery, anxiety symptoms, fatigue, and accelerated biological aging. Researchers from the American Psychological Association and Harvard Health have repeatedly discussed how chronic stress exposure affects inflammation, cardiovascular strain, immune function, and cognitive aging. And honestly, I've seen this pattern firsthand more times than I can count. I remember one patient in his late 60s who could not understand why he constantly felt exhausted by noon despite sleeping 7 hours every night. But every morning, before even getting out of bed, he spent almost 40 minutes scrolling stressful news stories and financial updates on his phone. His nervous system was entering fight or flight mode before breakfast. Once we changed that habit and rebuilt a calmer morning routine, his fatigue improved dramatically within weeks. And this leads directly into another major problem: aggressive morning fasting in older adults who are already under chronic physiological stress. Now, let me be very clear. Intermittent fasting may help certain individuals under proper medical guidance, but many adults over 60 are pushing fasting far beyond what their bodies tolerate well because wellness culture constantly promotes longer fasting as automatically healthier. What often gets ignored is that aging bodies process stress differently. Muscle preservation changes, hormonal resilience changes, recovery changes, blood sugar stability changes. Some older adults wake up already dehydrated, undermuscled, sleep-deprived, inflamed, and stressed. Then add caffeine and prolonged fasting on top of it. The result can be shakiness, dizziness, irritability, poor concentration, fatigue, and exaggerated cortisol responses throughout the day. I remember one woman in her early 70s who became convinced she needed to fast until 2 p.m. daily because she believed it was anti-aging. But instead of feeling healthier, she became weaker, more anxious, more fatigued, and started losing muscle rapidly. Once we stabilized her protein intake earlier in the day and reduced the stress load on her body, her energy improved significantly. And honestly, this is something many people struggle emotionally to accept. More discipline does not always equal better health after 60. Sometimes stability matters far more than intensity. And perhaps nowhere is that misunderstanding more dangerous than with excessive morning exercise. Now, please understand, movement is one of the best things adults over 60 can do for healthy aging. Walking, resistance training, mobility work, cardiovascular activity, these things are incredibly important. But there's a difference between supportive movement and punishing the body every morning while ignoring recovery. Many adults wake up stiff, dehydrated, sleep-deprived, undernourished, and immediately force themselves into extremely intense exercise because they fear aging or weight gain. The problem is that chronic overtraining increases inflammatory stress when recovery capacity declines with age. Studies published through journals like JAMA and research discussed by the Mayo Clinic have repeatedly emphasized the importance of recovery, muscle preservation, and sustainable exercise patterns in older adults. I remember one patient who proudly told me he exercised intensely every single morning at 5 a.m., no matter how exhausted he felt. He thought consistency alone made it healthy, but his cortisol remained elevated, his sleep worsened, and his fatigue became constant. Once we adjusted his exercise intensity and prioritized recovery and sleep, his overall health markers improved far more than when he was constantly pushing through. That phrase alone, pushing through, has quietly become one of the most dangerous mindsets in aging adults. Because after 60, the body often performs best when supported consistently, not punished aggressively. And honestly, one of the most overlooked habits accelerating aging right now may be something millions of adults consider completely harmless: relying on caffeine instead of true recovery. Coffee itself is not the enemy. Moderate coffee intake may even have certain health associations, according to studies from institutions like Johns Hopkins and Harvard Medical School. But the problem is how many adults use caffeine. They are not drinking coffee because they feel healthy. They are using it to override exhaustion signals the body is desperately trying to communicate. Poor sleep, chronic stress, blood sugar instability, inflammation, dehydration, sleep apnea, overwork, emotional burnout. And instead of addressing the underlying problem, the nervous system gets stimulated harder and harder every morning. That temporary boost can feel productive, but biologically, the body is often borrowing energy, not creating it. I remember a patient in his 70s who told me he couldn't function without 3 large coffees before 10 a.m. Eventually, we discovered severe sleep fragmentation and untreated sleep apnea were destroying his recovery overnight. Once treated properly, his dependence on caffeine decreased naturally because the real issue had finally been addressed. And this brings us to another surprisingly harmful habit: rushing the body immediately after waking. Most people never think about this. They wake up and instantly begin moving fast. Fast decisions, fast stress, fast movement, fast stimulation. But the cardiovascular system, balance system, and nervous system often need a gradual transition period after sleep, especially in older adults. Blood pressure regulation changes with age, circulation changes, hydration status changes overnight, and sudden physical stress immediately after waking can increase dizziness, instability, heart strain, and fatigue in some individuals. Doctors regularly see falls, morning dizziness episodes, and blood pressure fluctuations linked to abrupt morning transitions in older adults. Something as simple as sitting up slowly, hydrating properly, allowing light exposure, and easing into movement can significantly reduce stress on the body. And perhaps the most dangerous misconception of all is the obsession with anti-aging products instead of foundational health behaviors. So many adults spend enormous amounts of money chasing powders, supplements, detoxes, miracle drinks, and trendy wellness routines while ignoring the systems that actually regulate healthy aging. Sleep quality, blood sugar control, muscle preservation, social connection, emotional stability, walking, nutrition, stress reduction, consistency. These are not exciting topics online because they sound too simple. But biologically, they influence inflammation, metabolic function, cardiovascular health, hormone balance, and cognitive aging more profoundly than most trendy products ever will. And honestly, that may be one of the biggest hidden truths in modern health right now. The body does not reward chaos very well after 60. It rewards rhythm, stability, recovery, consistency, calm nervous system function, sustainable habits, not extremes, not panic-driven wellness culture, not constant biological stress disguised as optimization. So here's the final takeaway I really want you to remember today. A healthy morning routine after 60 should not leave your body feeling attacked. It should leave your body feeling supported, more stable, more recovered, more balanced. If your mornings constantly begin with exhaustion, stress, overstimulation, aggressive fasting, punishing exercise, emotional overload, or reliance on stimulants just to function, your body may already be trying to tell you something important, not through panic, but through fatigue, irritability, brain fog, poor recovery, poor sleep, low resilience. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Calm awareness. Because healthy aging is rarely built through extreme routines repeated for short periods of time. It's usually built quietly, through sustainable habits repeated consistently for years. And honestly, that's the part modern wellness culture often forgets. This video is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always speak with a qualified healthcare professional regarding symptoms, medications, fasting, exercise programs, or major lifestyle changes.